It's paint that got scratched up pretty good in a couple of places, right down to the metal in a couple of places. So it does need a paint job. In and as much, I've started over here pulling the emblem. This emblem was all scratched up as the bike had tipped over. At one point it tipped over, and so this emblem had to come off anyway. So what we're going to do is go through with how to basically, do DIY, do your own bike paint job. I've got some years in paint, so I am confident that the paint job that inevitably ends up is going to be really nice and fun as well to see how it comes together. It's the 2011, it's March 24th, I think, right? Thursday, March 24th, 2011. And, well, the weather's not quite riding weather yet, so inside of a week or two, this will be done. I'll be on it till I get it into primer later today, most likely, and go at it. Got some, have some power tools, have an orbital sander, a hand orbital sander. That'll take the finish right down. We won't hesitate to go right at it. And after which point, then we'll start building up. We'll use, once we get it down to metal, I have a product from years ago. I don't even know if they make this anymore. There's just a little bit left in the can, but it will be just enough to do the job. Once the paint is off and we get it down, for the most part, to metal, I'm going to use this product. It's called Pre-Cleano. It was made by R&M, and it's basically a silicone wax remover. I believe you can use any sort of thing, but if you call your local body supply companies, they'll give you an idea of just what an alternative is for that. We're also going to, we're not going to replace these emblems. I'm not going to bother getting into this. In fact, when the bike fell over, it created a small dent here. I'm going to use some Bondo and fill that on both sides. This is going to be a flush tank. It's going to round over nicely. When it's all said and done, we'll be just with a perfectly round tank, or a smoothed over tank. No indents for emblems. Okay, let's get started. Here's the tank off. I'll pull some more pieces. Some pieces I may leave. I most likely am going to leave this part here and just sand around it. And I'm also going to leave the fuel petcock. I'm going to leave the fuel petcock and sand around that. While you may do different, that's up to you. But this is never going to be seen, and so I'll just take my time around this, do this by hand, and that should be good to go. Okay, let's continue. We'll start. I'm going to get these emblems off, and then go at it with an hand orbital sander. Nothing special, just enough to take the paint off, and we'll go from there. We'll continue. All right, and removing the emblems. You can break them away, but I'm finding a box cutter, slip it in between, and cut away the binding adhesive foam in between the tank and the emblem itself. Should come right off. We'll see. Worrying about scratches? Don't worry about scratches. You can see I've got this one off already, and here's a dent, and the tank itself is in pretty good shape. I'll get that dent out though. Alright, we'll continue. Do a quick tape off here. Tape off the opening of the tank, and this, also the fuel petcock. And then I'm just going to go at it with an orbital sander. Just that simple. Preparation is everything with regards to ending up with a decent paint job. In this particular case, or in any case for that matter, we start slowly, think it through, and but don't be afraid to when you're committed to the job, you don't be afraid to necessarily put the sander right to the paint and go at it. The key here is to move quickly with the sander, move quickly across the surface with the sander, and don't sit in one spot for too long at any point in time. All these small sections here I'll do by hand. Around the edges I'll do all this by hand. So I'll give it I'll come up as close as I can, but basically it's all going to be it's going to work out nicely. Around here, around these edges, this can get hit with the orbital as close as you can. The edges, these have to be really maintained, these edges of these sharp lines, especially on the fenders. going to go down to the metal, but at the same point in time, when the paintwork is done, they have to be built up pretty well, because these are the places, if chipped, rust and such begins to get in. So we'll look at that as well. Okay, we'll continue. I'll get this taped off and we'll hit it with, we'll start at it. Okay, what we're doing is I've taken this dent down to metal because still thinking it through. I may be able to somehow get it out. Otherwise, when we put filler on, we need to have it down to metal. Can't put filler really over paint per se. So I'm taking it down to metal. I've changed the paper already one time, and it's going through. Here is what we're looking at. It's actually getting right down to the metal. When you hit metal on these edges, it goes right through. 80 grit, right through. So the key here is, and I'll show you a quick demonstration on how to move the sander over the surface as to not necessarily burn one spot through, especially on these tight little corners. Back here, on the tops of these, very difficult to not burn through, but you don't want to stop in any one spot too long. So you move with a smooth flow, you work with the piece. Generally speaking, the tank is steel. It's relatively durable. And so move quickly and evenly across the surface.
Basically, as it said, really you want to move quickly, and you want to have a grit of paper that's going to cut through the clear coats and through the color and get you down to your working surface as soon as possible. The best grits really for this job start somewhere between a 36 and a 60 grit to cut through the clears, through the color, get down to metal. That's the way it ended up with this job, with the scratches and the dents. It inevitably was easier just to get down to metal. Some keys here are to not spend a lot of time in any particular place, but to keep the sander moving, especially on the corners at the ends of the tank, where if the sander sits too long, it can burn through and cause you some grief. And so you want to move quickly. So you don't spend a lot of time there. Just move the sander quickly over it. Again, make sure you have the grit that's going to get you down to your working surface without too much work. Let the sander really do the job for you. At which point you can come up to an 80 grit paper right on top of the metal after you've done filling in and doing the rest of the job. Come up to 80. And then over 80 or over 100, you can spray a primer base, which is the one of the final working bases before you start adding color to the tank, which will come on a little later on. Just remember, have a grit that cuts quickly and gets you down to your working surface.
Okay, so you can see the motion of making the sanding, and obviously this is a a home done deal. A more professional body shop would maybe have the tank held onto something, bolted onto something. Nonetheless, we need to get into the bottom a little bit. I'm not going to worry so much about the bottom of the tank. I'm going to quickly hit it with an 80 and just do a scuff so that it can take some paint. It'll attach some paint, or attach the primer. It'll hold the primer, and once that's done, you can just put a color inside. But moving along quickly is so important. You've got to move quickly and smoothly. When you get to these edges, your fingertips are your eyes. Your eyes cannot see the small imperfections, but your fingertips, especially when you get a little of this clear coat on them, like a talcum, you gently touch, and if you close your eyes, you can see with your fingertips. And that's the key here. On these edges, I'm going to go over them later on with a 150. I'll go over with 100 by hand, right? Smooth it out till I get it to where I want it, and then inevitably we're getting down to the primer. Okay, here we are. The tank is now it's sanded, 80 grit sand. down to metal for the most part. You can see little shadows of the black paint, but that will not be a problem. Now we're going to actually leave it at 80 and do a fill-in on this little dent. Love to get into it from the inside and just pop it out.
It's not going to just pop out, however. We will take off the top cover and bang it from the inside. Still needs filler.
And so removing this piece, there's one clip that holds it on. You slip a screwdriver in between here and here. A little tab holds it on. Slip the screwdriver in. As you slip it in, just kind of wiggle this back, and voila, it comes off. This comes off. You now have these pieces separated. Be very gentle with it. And we're going to do a tape off around this edge so we can actually do a little cleanup around here. There seems to be just a little surface rust. Tape over, and I'll cut it with a box knife. And finish the job. Okay, that's it for now. We'll continue. All right. Looking at this dent, I really wanted to give it a shot without having to fill it, of getting it out. So while I wasn't sure about what was under here, I took it off anyway just to see. And lo and behold, we can get into the main body of the tank. Okay. It took the primary dent out. It will need a little putty to smooth it off. It didn't pop out like nice and clean. So, but certainly less putty than the hole that we would have had to fill. So a skim coat of putty. We'll go over this. Be just a coat or two, real thin initially, and that's it, and we'll continue from there.